It's a beautiful Friday morning, even though it's a little cold, a little cloudy out there. But John Lowry, I never met a Friday I didn't like.
You betcha. I'll never forget teaching Sunday school and having the opportunity to teach the seniors class one week. And one of those weeks, I asked the question, I said, tell me how you've been blessed this week. And I'll never forget a lady that looked me in the eyes and she said, 7 mornings. And with that, I thought, wow, what a perspective on life. So we are all blessed to be here this morning. It's another exciting day at Spark. We'll have a full house today, starting with the radio show here this morning, and then we'll have a bunch of friends joining us about 11:30 for March Madness. And the opportunity on all of our big screen TVs here to watch college basketball and this fun experience we have every year.
Our friends at Belmont just didn't make it into the second round, but congratulations to Rick Bird and crew. The only time we pull against Belmont is when they come up Belmont Boulevard.
Exactly right, exactly right. We're proud of all the Tennessee teams, Middle and Belmont. None of them got out of the first round, but it's good to see Tennessee being competitive nationally in basketball.
What's going on at Spark?
Well, we are excited. We are right in the process of beginning to recruit for our fall cohorts. We've got some information sessions coming up, one on April 8th, one on June 5th, where people can come and learn about the 7 different master's degrees that we're offering out of Spark. Those are in the area of business, technology, counseling, and education. And so if people are interested in continuing to build on their professional growth in some of those areas, there's a master's degree for you right here in Williamson County through the Spark campus. In addition to that, we've got a really exciting event coming up that I think people will be interested in. The president of Lipscomb, Dr. Randy Lowry, as you know, Tom, is an expert in collaboration and conflict management. And Williamson County has perhaps put together a model for collaboration in terms of the unification of the chamber. And so on April 23rd, we will have Brad Dunn, who is the chair of the Williamson County Chamber, tell the story about how he facilitated that unification and do it in conversation with Dr. Lowry from Lipscomb. And I think from that there'll be some powerful lessons for this community on the importance and the value of working collaboratively together to make Williamson County a better place. So we're really looking forward to that event and hope that people will come and be a part of it.
Our first guest this morning, Brad Dunn, by the way, uses this term, putting those chambers together into one was like building a plane and flying it all at the same time. It's flying a plane and building it one piece at a time. And he's done a remarkable job with that. Our first guest is a legend in that he's a pilot. He is an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. Let's see. He's an author. In fact, his latest book is a topic this morning, along with Stowe Daily Shockey. And I didn't recognize Stowe this morning without her guitar, so I hope she brought it with her. Calvin Layhew. Good morning, Calvin.
Good morning, Tom. Glad to be here.
It's this is kind of a mini factory. Calvin Layhew envisioned the factory when it was just basically a pile of bricks, and the dump truck was going to pick up the pile of bricks if Calvin hadn't done something about it. And now here it is, one of Franklin's jewels. And now Calvin Layhew's never going to retire. What's next? You have sold the factory, but what is next?
The thing, I believe in setting goals and accomplishing those, and one of my goals was to sell the factory. Number 2 was to have a house on the beach down in Florida. And so after selling it, we went right down, and real estate prices were so, you could buy half price what to normally. So we bought a home right on the beach. My first drugstore was down in Tallahassee, Florida, and we used to go down to Apalachicola and I just fell in love with that area. So we had a home there, and then we were down that way a a couple of months ago. And one of my other goals was to fly a P-51 fighter plane, World War II. That's my favorite airplane. And it just so happened that so many coincidences and serendipitous things happen when you put your mind to things and so forth. My wife goes down to the grocery store, and I'm a little bored, and she said, Calvin, you can ride in the P-51 down here at this airport. And it was, I looked into it, and it was so expensive. I thought, no, I don't want to spend that kind of money. And she said, look, we've sold the factory, we've got money now, and you're bored. So I said, okay, I'll go on. Well, I hit it with a pilot, and we were just really happy with each other. I got in that P-51, and he took it off, and he said, take over the controls. He let me take that plane, do dives, pull up, pull some G's, go over backwards, do rolls. I did the stunt pilot stuff and so forth, and it was one of the highlights of my life. So I don't know what I'm going to do next.
Now you know why we call the book Flying High.
Well, yes, yes. Stowe Daly Shockey is with us as well. Both, tell us about Flying High, because this book has been out now a little bit less than a year. When I arrived here at Spark this morning, I caught Calvin reading the walls. And Spark is a state-of-the-art convocation center. And that is what, so I could see the wheels grinding already. So I believe Calvin is getting a new idea from Spark today.
He's being sparked, yeah. Well, he's all about sparking ideas.
But tell us about Flying High. There's an amazing story behind this one book. Now, Calvin can get a little deep sometimes. And he not only listens to motivational speakers, he is one, and he gets to know them personally. He just read a statement by Jack Welch on the wall over here. I'll bet you dollars to donuts. Calvin's already met Jack Welch. But tell us about Flying High, how that came to be, because Calvin has flown high.
Yes, he has.
But sometimes he is crushed to burn.
This is true. Well, when we met Calvin, my husband and I, Peter Shockey, when we met him, we thought Calvin has such a fabulous story, we have to tell it. And I was, at the time, had just been diagnosed with rectal cancer. So I was going through that, and Calvin immediately started mentoring me and telling me, you know, that with every adversity there is with it a seed of greatness. And I took that to heart. You know, I started looking for those seeds. And I started writing Calvin's story. My husband began filming, making a documentary on the whole process of writing it. And of course we had no idea how the story would end. And I was, you know, like a lot of folks, I think I was dealing with fear, you know, not just fear about cancer, but, you know, the fear of, you know, how can I live my life and to the fullest, to be on purpose, to do what I was born to do, because I wasn't really doing it. And through the process of going through cancer, which is, you know, will really focus you on, you know, what's important in life, and being mentored really by Calvin as I wrote his story and hearing, you know, his lessons and having him encourage me to read and all this, it just, for me, it just brought me out of a place, you know, where I was afraid of heights, literally, but I was also afraid to fly high in my own skin. So he's helped me do that in just an amazing way. It's been a really good process.
We teach best what we need the most.
That's right.
There's so many quotations in here. Worry is the wrong use of imagination.
Yes, sir.
Who'd you steal that from?
I think it was Earl Nightingale.
Earl
It could have been
Nightingale.
Nightingale. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale was my first guy that I started. The Power of Positive Thinking. And that was what really started me out. Both of my parents died when I was a teenager, and Mrs. Albert Gore invited me to come to Washington. And I was a page in the United States Senate and an elevator operator, and that's where I got to know 5 presidents 3 of them before they became president, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon. And my whole life just changed, and I wanted to know what makes people successful. And it was the mind. I took, in college, I took psychology and philosophy as electives, majored in economics. But here again, the mind, but I've since added the heart. The heart is the most important place, beyond the mind.
Calvin, you say something in your book here that I think is really interesting. Here at Spark, we're all about new ideas. There's a lot of entrepreneurial activity here. And as you think about that, I'm really interested in what you say here, where conventional wisdom basically says, I'll believe it when I see it. But in your book, you talk about how I'll see it when I believe it. Tell us a little bit about that.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This is where it starts. We create from our thoughts and our beliefs. They have to come first, and then it manifests. What you think about, you bring about. That's it in a nutshell right there. You think negative thoughts, you're going to start creating them. They call it the law of attraction. You start, when you send out vibrations, it's been proven in science now that our thoughts send out vibrations and they affect everything and around us and so forth. Well, I would need more than this time to explain all, but it's just fantastic what we're learning now, how our thoughts affect even things, flowers, people, animals. A negative type person comes into this room, you'll pick up that vibration. And I've just been so, I succeeded in my goals, and I thought money would bring me happiness. I set my goal to be a millionaire at age 35. I hit it at 33. And it's just amazing what you can do when you set your mind to it. And one of the big things I don't want to forget, and I'm sure Spark right here teaches it, and they ought to have it above the walls in of the business schools, and they don't teach this, but you've got to give in order to receive. That is one of the biggest lessons of the universe. If you want love, you got to give love. If you want money, you got to give a product or service. And that's one of the big things I had to learn.
I think this man could teach a master's, an MBA program, don't you?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We can get him in front of every one of our students.
I'd be happy.
Tell us about where Flying High is available. There's a Flying High campaign about to be launched.
Oh, yes.
Because more and more people are reading this book, and but we want to help word of mouth along.
Yes. Well, Publix has just picked it up, and we're so excited about that for Publix all over Tennessee. So this is just a wonderful first step. And Calvin and I are going to be doing a book signing this next Saturday, March 30th, be at 11 o'clock to 1.
Easter Eve.
Yeah, and we're going to be giving, with every book purchase, we're going to be giving 2 free song downloads. So I've got an album called Flying High CD, music that is largely written around the book. And it's really fun, positive, uplifting music. And so we want to see people out there. We want to meet people. We want to meet people that have read the book and talk to them, because it's really having an impact on the people who read it.
Is there a sequel in the works?
Not as yet.
Okay. I don't think that those are P-51s hanging from your ears. It doesn't have the double tail.
Can you tell me what that is?
But I do want to know what Calvin did with that airplane. And does your wife know you bought it yet?
They used, after World War II was over, they sold those for like $200 or $300 and filled them up with fuel. Today, well, let's see, about 20 years ago, those planes sold for around $1 million. Today, I would have no idea. There are only like 4 or 5 left in the world that are operative and still flyable. So I would not want to buy one.
I don't think it would land on the strip in Lipscomb.
No, this farm used to be Johnny Knowles' farm, and we flew in and out of here. One of my major crashes it could have been right here. Yeah.
We appreciate y'all being with us. And again, Flying High is available Is it available online?
It is, Amazon and our website, which is flyinghighbook.com. Come on and visit us. And also I want to say that we have a limited number of free tickets for our Flying High concert event, which will be filmed in May 16th. And Toby Mack is going to be there with us, supporting us, so we're excited about that.
At the factory.
Mm-hmm. So come on out to help us. March 30th.
This is too small.
Oh. Thank you for being with us this
Thank
morning.
We're honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you, John.
Tell us about our two guests coming up.
Well, we're excited. We've got Jim Goodlow and Ken Harms here who are going to tell us about the Christian Business Leadership Network, which is a new outreach from the Operation Andrew group here in Nashville.
We'll take a break and we'll be back here. You're listening to the Hometown Radio Show from Spark this morning, Lipscomb University's Idea Center in Cool Springs. And by the way, you can hear this program, I'd say maybe around Monday of next week. You can go online to iTunes and it'll be available on demand there. This is WBKM, Franklin, Tennessee, streaming live on WBKMWorldwide.com. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Jim Goodlow.
Jim, what do you do for a living?
I work for the Tennessee Hospital Association. We're a trade association for the hospitals of Tennessee.
Wonderful. It's a large organization. It's one of those organizations that keeps a very low profile on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And how about the Gator fan?
My name is Ken Harms. I'm a president with UPS.
Wonderful. Two heavy hitters, John.
You bet, without a doubt, without a doubt. Jim, why don't we start off, we're excited to hear about the Christian Business Leaders Network that Operation Andrew is sponsoring. Before we get there, though, tell us a little bit about the Operation Andrew group and the great work it's doing here in Middle Tennessee.
Sure. The Operation Andrew group was formed as a result of the Billy Graham crusade that was here in 2000. A group of local business leaders came together after the crusade was over and said, we've got a good thing going here, we need to keep it going. And so they formed Operation Andrew Group. And you can summarize our purpose real simply. We are followers of Christ, united for the benefit of Middle Tennessee. So we are all ethnicities, all races, all denominations. If you call yourself a Christian, then you have a place in Operation Andrew Group.
And the executive director of the Operation Andrew Group is Mike Arrington, who's not available to be with us this morning, because I think he's in New York City this morning, enjoying some time with his family. Tell us a little bit in terms of the type of work that the Operation Andrew Group is doing.
Sure. We have several initiatives. Probably the one that we're most excited about, the one that we spend a tremendous amount of time on, is called United for Hope. It's an effort, it's been around a couple of years now, and it's an effort to partner churches with inner city schools. So a church in a suburban environment could partner with an inner city school, provide tutoring, provide resources, provide support to the students, the parents, and the teachers.
There's so much connection between what we're about here at Spark and what Operation Andrew Group is doing. Starting with the faith-based foundation in terms of everything that we want to do, this idea of service, but then the whole idea of collaboration as well, and trying to bring people together to be more productive and make a more positive impact in their communities. I know another outreach that we're excited about that is coming online with the Operation Andrew Group is the Christian Business Leadership Network. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The goal of uniting Christian business leaders has been around for several years as part of Operation Andrew Group. We struggled a little bit with trying to find some identity to it. We talked about doing Bible studies for business leaders, but quite frankly, there are a lot of Bible studies for business leaders that are available. We talked about coming together just as sort of a Christian business leaders club, where you would come together once a month or periodically to network and to fellowship. But quite frankly, business leaders are busy, and what they don't have a lot of extra time is time. So we thought that probably would not be as effective. And then you came up with the idea of mentoring and coaching, of taking seasoned business leaders, Christian business leaders, and encouraging them to share their experiences, the work that they've done as a Christian in the workforce, with young business leaders, to mentor them, to coach them. Sometimes it's difficult to be a Christian in business. Sharing what you've learned, sharing what you encounter with younger men and women is really, gives them a tremendous advantage and a tremendous opportunity to grow.
So leadership is a tough thing for anyone. If you look at the number one professional skill deficiency that people identify, it's leadership, followed quickly by conflict management. And so as we think about growing leaders, there are obviously lots of classes, lots of programs, lots of opportunities that way through Lipscomb and so many other entities out there. But one of the things that I think is really powerful is this whole idea of just learning leadership for people who are leading and learning from the things that they've done right and the things that they've done wrong. Ken, you're a CEO of a major organization. You've got a ton of employees that are working for you. Talk a little bit about how you learned leadership and this model that we put in place for the Christian Business Leadership Network and how it can make a difference in young aspiring leaders.
And it's a great question. I think that when we talked about kind of how we put this entire thing together, and certainly the idea that we're incubating and birthing, if you will, took me back into my career. And it was kind of a summation of a lot of the mistakes that I made and how I learned from those mistakes. And then leaned back on some of the lessons where I had some outstanding mentors. And at the end of the day, the ones that were Christian men seemed to kind of stand out. I seemed to get a little bit more pushing sometimes, a little bit more biblical teachings, and there are hundreds and hundreds of references to leadership and to wisdom in the Bible. Mm-hmm. If we, of course, go to that as the starting point to kind of recheck and reassess what we're doing as we're growing in the business world, is quite helpful.
So what do you think that the business leaders who are volunteering their time, who are willing to pour their lives into the next generation, what will they get out of participating in a program like this?
Well, you yourself know as a teacher, sometimes the teacher learns as they're teaching. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, what I think they get out of it is it kind of rekindles some old fires and kind of reminds them, I think, a lot of times as to how they achieved the different levels of success that they've achieved, and having the opportunity to mentor young up-and-coming business leaders. I don't want to say that we're kind of reliving our youth, but I believe that it kind of sparks something in our lobes that remind us exactly how we got there, and it's personally gratifying.
Mm-hmm. There's also the opportunity to give back. Mm-hmm. A lot of these more seasoned, particularly older, perhaps retired Christian business leaders have a real desire to give back. They were given to, and now they see it as their turn, and they want to give back to the younger community. A friend of mine who recently retired, and I was talking to him about this, and he said, "Jim, this is exactly what I'm looking for as I go into the next phase of my life."
Let's take a break for news. We'll be back in approximately 6 minutes to talk more about Operation Andrew and about these two fascinating gentlemen here. We're at Spark, Lipscomb University's Idea Center in Cool Springs. You're listening to WBKM Franklin, Tennessee, streaming live on WBKMWorldwide.com. You really need to visit Spark. I think that's what we're trying to tell you this morning. Part of this morning's Hometown Radio show is dedicated to Operation Andrew. Tell us, I understand Operation Andrew is your concept. John, tell us more.
Well, Operation Andrew Group is not my concept. That was Mike Arrington and many other good folks here in Nashville that started that. How long ago, Jim?
2000.
2000. Okay, so it's been almost 15 years now. But I was really honored when Mike and Ken and Jim approached me and asked about what the Operation Andrew Group might do to reach out to young professionals. And we had just a couple of great breakfasts at the Puffy Muffin, which is always a good place to have breakfast, and came up with some collaborative ideas that ultimately manifested itself in this Christian Business Leadership Network. And the whole idea of this network is to really build upon how it is that we cultivate leaders. And so many times, if you ask people, where did you learn leadership? They're not going to point to a course. They may not necessarily point to a book, but they'll point to a person who they observed and who they watched and who they had a relationship with. And they'll point to times where perhaps that person got after them a little bit and coached them and got in their face when they weren't going the right direction. And there was also that person that encouraged them along the way too when it became difficult.
There's an art to holding a person accountable, you know.
You bet.
And it should always be done with a smile.
Sure is. And that's part of good leadership. And so for young professionals that are eager to become good leaders and are working through the leadership challenge now, we looked around and said, where are those people connecting with good leaders in our community? And to look out and say, who are the folks that have a foundation of faith, that carry the Christian faith with them, and yet at the same time have been very successful in their business, in their work, and yet have done so in a way where they've not compromised their faith in any way. How is it that we get those folks connected with young professionals? And that's where we came up with the idea of the Christian Business Leadership Network. And the whole idea of it is really simple. It is literally just putting these folks together. And so there's no formal program in terms of the first Tuesday of every morning getting together and having a big breakfast. The way that this is going to play out is we're going to appoint some team leaders. Excuse me here. And those team leaders, what they're going to do is they are going to reach out to 3 or 4 different people. And they're going to bring those together, and then we're going to make available some of these Christian business leaders who have so graciously extended the opportunity to get together with these folks and give them time and pour their lives into them. And we're hoping that every week across Middle Tennessee, there will be multiple meetings that take place. And they'll take place in coffee shops and in Starbucks and in restaurants and things like that. But sitting down at the table over breakfast or lunch or a cup of coffee, we can get these Christian business leaders in relationship and in conversation with these young, aspiring professionals. And that's really the concept. It's relatively simple. And if there's a young professional out there that wants to be a team leader, we are looking for those right now, and we are excited about you stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll lead a team, I want to get connected with these folks. If there is a Christian business leader out there who says, yeah, I've been looking for ways in which I can make an impact on the next generation and I can pass along these values that have served me so well, we're looking for those folks as well. So I've been honored to be a part of it, but it's really been kind of Jim and Ken and Mike that have demonstrated some really powerful leadership around this whole idea. Give us a sense in terms of vision. A year from now, what does this look like, Jim, if it works and it goes as we envision?
It can be as big as God wants it to be. I don't want to sit here and say 20 groups meeting. God may want 50 groups meeting. He may want 100 groups meeting. We really want to let this be led by God and be driven by the young Christian leaders that come into this. And the more young Christian leaders we have participating, the more seasoned Christian leaders we're going to need participating. And so we're just going to let it grow and see where it goes. And I hope it's big. And, this might be dreaming, but perhaps this is a start in Nashville of something that could move to Memphis, to Birmingham, and beyond.
If people want to get involved, tell us how they can do that.
You can go to Operation Andrew website, www.operationandrew.org. The telephone number is on the website. You can call and leave your name with the receptionist there, and we will be in touch.
Very good, very good. Ken, tell us how the Gators are going to do today.
Well, based on how Kentucky did in their tournament, I'm a little bit leery. So, but they should show up, and I think Coach Stein will have them ready to play basketball. So.
I've got a tape rolling on this program. I have to ask one about Obamacare, and I have to ask the other about the economy, because if anybody knows the economy, it's UPS. Is the light at the end of the tunnel?
You know, from where we sit, it's kind of eating the elephant one bite at a time. If the recovery seems to be extremely slow, that's what we've seen. We do believe that the economy is coming back, but it's just not a very robust rebound, if you will.
So you may not be hiring right now, but you are preparing to hire.
We hire typically based on the seasonal influx, and a lot of that occurs around the Christmas time rush, but also at different times of the year. So we still hire in our inside, what we call our handling operations, pretty much on a regular basis. And it's a great job for students. That's how I started. Started as a college student trying to finish my education, and it was a good fit because of the hours and the good hard work.
And Obamacare, is it? It seems like there is less opposition to Obamacare than it was 12 months ago. Or am I just misreading things and I'm not listening anymore?
Well, there are certainly plenty of people that would like to see it go away. The fact is, it's a reality. It's here. It's probably not going to go away. Hospitals, healthcare in general, has to respond to the need for healthcare reform. We can't continue the path that we have been going down for the last several decades, and so change is absolutely in our future. What ACA, the Affordability and Accountability Act, does for hospitals in Tennessee, particularly now, is a major decision point for our governor in terms of accepting the Medicaid expansion dollars. It will allow the hospitals to truly serve the indigent and less fortunate aspects of our population. So we are very interested in seeing that get accepted, and so that we can go about the business of caring for the people of Tennessee.
You serve that population right now. You just don't get paid for it.
That would be absolutely correct. That would be absolutely correct. And that's an issue for hospitals. We ask our CEOs every year, we ask it a variety of ways, but it sort of focuses in on what keeps you up at night. Generally, the top three answers, and they take different forms, but it's reimbursement, reimbursement, reimbursement. Hospitals can't continue to provide care to citizens like us if they're not going to get paid for the citizens, if they're not going to get reimbursed appropriately for those that can't pay for care. It's just, it's a simple law of finance. And that's something that the Medicaid expansion dollars will help hospitals accomplish.
Doctors, nurses, pharmaceuticals, and the place you will find all three are not cheap.
That is correct.
You don't want them to be cheap.
That is correct.
You want the best. And I presume, I don't know, Thailand might have a better hospital system, but outside of Thailand, I'm not sure there's any better than what's here right now.
Well, I don't know much about Thailand, but quite frankly,
if
I have to have health care, if I have a health need that needs to be met, this is where I would want to have it.
Well, I can tell you, if I have a heart attack, I'm going to the closest hospital.
Well, and Nashville's got some very, very good hospitals that can take care of our needs.
John, this Operation Andrew sounds very interesting to me. Sounds like a place I could learn.
Well, Operation Andrews has done some incredible work. I think the Christian Business Leaders Network is the next generation of that work. And what's really exciting is to see the inclusion of the younger professionals and to have something that can really provide some growth for them. I think that's the value here.
What's that website again?
www.operationandrew.org. And let me just mention one underlying principle of Operation Andrew. It is for all Christians. So all races, all denominations, all ethnicities. If you looked at our board of directors, you would see Baptists, you would see Methodists, you'd see members of Church of Christ, you'd see African Americans, you'd see Hispanics, you'd see Asian. So that is what we are all about, is that complete mixing of all Christians, regardless of who you are and where you come from.
We'll take another break.
Oh, I was going to add my 2 cents.
Please do.
And, on that same line, we knew that when Christ was asked what was the greatest commandment, we were told to love, God with all our heart. The second piece of that was to love your neighbor as yourself. And this is what this is really all about. It's about the community coming together from a standpoint beyond just the United for Hope piece, but this is an extension of that, we think.
You can boil the Bible down into 3 words. Love thy neighbor.
Amen.
You're listening to the Hometown Radio Show on WBKM, streaming live on WBKMWorldwide.com. Back in just a couple of minutes. We are back at Spark. We'll be coming up here in about 15 minutes or so. We're going to be talking a little sports. WBKM Sports Director Terry Merrill will join the big hut in the studio this morning. Who's our next guest? John.
Don't scare him away, Tom. We still got 20-some minutes left of the show. We are pleased this morning to have Marty Reed, who is the CEO of Randa Solutions. You know, when we talked about this show, Tom, one of the things that we were both passionate about was to be sure to let Williamson County know about some of the great ideas that are coming out of this community that are making a difference across the country. And perhaps there is no better representation of that than what Marty and Randa Solutions are doing in the education space. And we're excited to have him here. Marty, tell us a little bit about Randa and what y'all do.
So Randa is focused on the area of teacher effectiveness. And so we provide software that supports those efforts. So we see a lot of efforts in the education ed tech industry to support the students and give the students direct support. Not a tremendous amount supporting the teacher. And so we're focused on that and have been for about the past 13 years.
We live in a community that thrives on both public and private education.
Certainly.
Tennessee has chosen now to hold their teachers more accountable.
Yes.
We should hold everyone, including ourselves, more accountable. Lord knows the stock market holds the corporate world accountable.
Yep.
So do you work with school systems in developing the software in order to help them do that?
Right, so they develop the policy and the process, and then we apply software to make that easier. And kind of give you an example, one of the processes that we support is a teacher evaluation process. And the paperwork effort in that for a single teacher evaluation for a principal is about 3 hours. So you look at a principal with about 100 teachers, and they have to do that numerous times throughout the year now for every teacher. That's a lot of time spent evaluating teachers. So we can reduce that paperwork effort to about 45 minutes and really make an impact on their day.
Marty, I've got an iPad here. Tell us how you're putting technology like this to use in terms of doing that teacher evaluation.
Right, so when we first developed our observation product, we worked with some school districts in Tennessee, Wilson County being one of those. And one of the big things they mentioned was, well, we don't have great coverage in our classrooms as far as wireless. Some of us take that for granted in our daily lives, but school systems have to spend a tremendous amount, and the governor just is approving a very large sum of money to up that infrastructure, but we still have to support offline. And so what we did was we developed a native tool on the iPad to allow principals to go through the classroom and do that work.
That's great. You mentioned the governor and budgeting and all of that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about all of this data that your software solutions are collecting.
Mm-hmm.
How is that being used to help education leaders as well as political leaders and governmental leaders make decisions about how to best fund education?
Sure. So there's a tremendous amount of investment going on from a public view with Race to the Top, and then before that, No Child Left Behind, and then even before that, there were other initiatives that made significant investments in the summative evaluation of a student and looking at student growth over time and teacher growth over time. And so what we do is really work with states and school districts to make sure that that data is accurate and make sure that the teacher owns the data. So we see a lot of instances around the country where teachers are saying, well, these test scores are not necessarily mine, I don't know what students are being applied here. The software that we have developed allows that to not be the case. The teacher goes in and says, I taught this student this amount of math, this amount of science, so on and so forth, to really get granular in that evaluation effort. And so we feel like that accuracy, that heightened accuracy over time, really has a major impact on the teachers as a whole.
And you're working with school districts across the country, from Washington, D.C. all the way west, is that right?
Right, so we have, customers, DC Public Schools, and then we have some customers out in New Mexico, Colorado, California. So we're in about 17 states, and then we're also in 7 countries right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking what we've learned in the U.S. abroad.
Where does your input come from? Does the NEA or the AFT, do they get to put their 2 cents in, or how does that work?
Absolutely. We work collaboratively with all of our potential customers and potential partners. So if you look at our software, there's a teacher or there's an administrator or there's somebody out in the field that contributed that selection. So we're not content experts, and we don't try to be. We go out to the field and say, let's apply some software here. Now tell us how that works for you, and let's make it better over time.
In other words, you don't evaluate teachers, you simply design the vehicle.
That's right.
Tell us something, though, that educators and education leaders have learned through some of the data that you've collected that perhaps they didn't know before that helps improve the quality of education.
Right. So an interesting little factoid. We applied an algorithm across our data set just to see. We asked the question, what's the best time to observe a teacher by a principal? And we found overarchingly that the worst time was around 11 a.m. on Friday. So little snippets like that you're not expecting to hear from the data, we get that back. And then we also find that school districts are really quite good at aligning their own professional development, really defining what a teacher should do to make themselves better. It may not be watch this video, it may be go visit Miss Smith's class and we want you to see how she does it.
Let's talk about a few more of those demographics. I am understanding now, as a former lobbyist for a teachers union,
Sure.
that now we are starting to realize that just because you have taught for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years, that sometimes great teachers are literally born. That teachers who've been in the classroom 5-6 years are achieving just as much as a classroom teacher has been there for 30 years.
Well, we're seeing a lot of different things across that venue, and a part of that is the next generation learners that we have out there. So you look at the children, my 3-year-old is a perfect example. They're digital natives. I walked up behind him and he was playing a game in German. And it wasn't because he knew German. It was because he's a digital native and he understands how the tools work. And so we have to kind of consider that. And so part of that is those people moving forward. But what we've seen is that those teachers that have been in the practice for 40 years are adopting the technology just as fast.
So you just used a term that is new to me, a digital native. So is your son the first generation digital native?
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say it's probably a little bit further back than that. But the iPad and these touchscreen devices and really the adoption in the past few years has really catapulted those learners in a way they never have before.
Are there touchscreen devices in cribs now?
There will be soon.
It's pretty close. With nerds like myself, your kids have something to play with, 2-3 years old.
What's the future of your technology and of Randa? Are you going to take this kind of technology into other areas of expertise that needs evaluation, like who evaluates doctors?
Well, there's definitely some opportunity in healthcare and in some of the other major industries in Middle Tennessee for sure. What we're really focused on is we are really focused on that effort of teacher effectiveness and helping those teachers right now. And so we want to really stay in that space. And to kind of give you the big, hairy goal, if you will, we want to develop a screen, much like Google, where a teacher goes in and says, Johnny in group work. And it says, well, with a student like Johnny, with a teacher like Johnny's, in a school like Johnny's, so on and so forth. If you put him in a group of 3 versus a group of 5, 66% of the time, he'll perform better. And we we have the tools and the technology to do that. All we need is more data to fill that in.
Marty, Spark is an innovation center, and it's kind of unique in the sense that it is an innovative outreach of a higher education institution and a higher education industry that is not always the most innovative.
Certainly.
And you have found a way to bring innovation to the table in terms of education. Talk a little bit about innovation and what drives innovation, what you see as valuable in terms of the factors that tend to produce really good innovative solutions.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that, I will say I'll recommend one book that everybody thinking about innovation should read. It's called Change by Design. It's by Tim Brown, who is the CEO of IDEO, which is one of the largest design firms in the world. And what the trick to true innovation is failing fast and failing often to get to the right answer. If you try to go out and develop something end to end and expect that to be the end-all, be-all solution, then you're not truly innovating, you're just developing an idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But America's not built on, is not tolerant of failure, even though our greatest president failed several times in elective opportunities.
Yes, that's true. It's interesting though, whenever you look at the larger corporations, and Google is a great example. If you ever go look at Google's Google Labs page, they have hundreds of projects that they have internally working, and that's one of the things that we apply within Randa is for our employees to go in and say, you know, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about putting some effort towards that? Let's try it for a little bit. 20% of your time is to come up with those ideas, and that's what Google does. And you'll see just massive lists of innovation, and they fail fast and often, and they have really worked at that. And they do it with a level of openness and communication that's really unrivaled in the industry.
I think that's so counterintuitive because so much of what we teach, so much of what we learned is that, you know, failure is not a good thing and we need to avoid failure at all costs. But what I hear you saying is that failure can be a very good thing, and there's a lot that is learned from failure. And if you take that learning and apply it towards other ideas and new innovations, it can be extraordinarily valuable.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the definition of failure. Is the catch right there? Is what do you define as failure, and how quickly can you fail? So
the best school and the most expensive school is the School of Hard Knocks.
That's right. I've spent some time there.
Amen, brother.
We all have. Yeah.
Tell us about the local operation, Randa. How many employees you have, and I would presume you have an incredible sales force out there on a national level.
Yeah, you know, we do a few different things on the sales level. We partner with great organizations like Apple and some foundations out there that are really trying to solve those policy and process problems. And we can support them with software. So our actual sales force is not significant. Our business development force is quite strong. But we have outstanding developers. I would put our developers up against any organization in town or even out of town, because the work that they've done and the work that they can produce. You look at the project that we just rolled out in beta for DC Public Schools, and we're getting lots of great reviews. And we developed that in about 2 months. So I think that what we do and the culture that we strive is to really kind of pass through that glass ceiling that everybody puts on themselves, and really be able to say, okay, we can do that. That's possible. And so that's kind of the culture. And we're continuing to grow and build on that and look for those types of developers, those types of business development folks that can see that next step, can see the vision beyond today, and really strive to get there.
I would presume that it would be to Randa's advantage to have more and more business more and more business leaders on school boards.
Well, yeah, that's very true.
Or in administration.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a gap that has to be bridged between the business world and the schools to really partner. in a much more formative way. And I think, you know, John's work that he's taken on in a lot of that arena has been exceptional. I went to an event that he hosted with WCS and the Chamber and those types of things, and really had some great innovative kind of brainstorming with leaders in the community, and really got some great ideas out of it. So I think that, as much as anything, is getting those people together to chat is as important as anything else. And giving the teachers an opportunity to tap into those resources and say, I have a big interest for my students to learn about programming on the iPad. We can do that.
Here's your curveball.
Mm-hmm. Neil, it's coming.
Nothing is ever as bad as it appears, and nothing is ever as good as it appears.
Certainly.
It's your job to develop technology to evaluate teachers. Evaluate the Williamson County school system. Is it as good as it appears?
Williamson County Schools has exceptional opportunities as it relates to many other districts within the country. And what we've seen, you know, my sons go there. I grew up in the Williamson County school system, so you know, I can hark back to my high school years and think about my U.S. history teacher, Mrs. Baird. And she was the one that really defined how I learned. And so I think as long as Williamson County continues to bring in that type of talent and continues to recruit those types of folks, it's going to continue to produce the exceptional people that it has in the past.
I think Williamson County school system is great because the parents of Williamson County are great parents. Not to say they couldn't be better parents, but I think that's what we demand, and you generally get what you demand.
Well, I believe that what we've seen in research, especially the reason for the rise in charter schools and those types of things, is charter schools require exceptional parental involvement, and that's a big piece of their puzzle. And so I would agree with you that parental involvement, as far as learning goes, is key. And we even, you know, the kindergarten roundup that you go to, and the principal talks about the three-legged stool. Well, one of those legs is the parents, and you have to have that involvement in order to have that success.
Marty, there's a lot of debate out there in terms of which metric to use.
Mm-hmm.
Do you evaluate teachers? Do you evaluate students? Do you evaluate schools as a whole? Do you evaluate districts? How is it that you best evaluate education? Based on your experience, what do you see as one of the most accurate indicators of quality in education?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think it's quite a broad spectrum, actually, and I think we're only really touching the surface of it. So we've looked at standardized testing as a big part of that, and now we're looking at teacher observation. There are a lot of soft measures that are coming into play. Carnegie Mellon has a student perception survey. There's school climate surveys that are out there that get that student perception in a different way. So I think there's a lot of soft measures that have yet to be touched, and I think kind of the culmination of all those, I don't know that you could put one pin in it and say this piece of the puzzle is the end-all be-all answer, and I think that's why it's such a complex problem. So I was at a Gates Foundation event a few months ago, and they said, well, if you want the students to perform well versus other students throughout the country, you're measuring them on standardized tests, so part of that measure must be standardized tests. You have to, apples to apples. But the conversations continue to expand. We see that expansion in that conversation. I was just in Ohio yesterday speaking with some state folks there, and they are moving forward in their thoughts. They're bringing in that student growth measure. They're talking about those professional development measures to add to that puzzle. So I think the conversation is not yet done, and as we continue to do it, we'll learn more about it.
Let me shift gears here just a little bit on you. As you think about serving education, obviously you need developers because that's what you're developing is software.
Right.
And Middle Tennessee has kind of a well-documented shortage of people working in the software development area, people working in IT. Talk a little bit in terms of how you've felt that shortage, if you have, and what solutions you see for Middle Tennessee dealing with it.
Sure. So yeah, we have 6 open positions right now out of a staff of 60. So I mean, we are constantly searching for that talent, and we are actually, you know, doing a little collaboration with the Spark Center here and working on some ideas around how do we provide a program that we can build those types of students up. There's a lot of great students that come out of Vanderbilt. They go to Google, they go to Facebook, and those types of things. Those partnerships between, again, the higher ed and the community and the business leaders, I think what Spark's doing is great in terms of that and bringing in that collaboration that needs to happen. So that's how we're solving it, and we have some pretty extensive ways to measure those aptitudes, if you will. And then we also look at just strengths. So we use the Strengths Finder tools from Gartner and say, okay, what pieces to the puzzle make a great developer or a great QA or a great business analyst, and how do we leverage that over time?
I think we're at the end of the road for today. John, this fascinates me. I have one other curveball question.
All right.
How do you keep your property, your proprietary rights safe, especially from sources overseas?
Sure.
Talking about, yes, over the Pacific.
Well, you're always going to have that. I mean, there's always going to be piracy and those types of things. So, you know, we protect it through international patents. We protect it through international trademarks. Our legal representation does a great job of finding those resources for us nationally and internationally to be able to protect those things. But there's always somebody that's going to try to take that idea, and you just have to always be a step ahead of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
John, these programs are just getting better and better.
It's been a fun morning, hasn't it?
It
We've
sure
been
has.
inspired, and we've been encouraged to think more innovatively, and out of that comes great stuff.
11:30 today.
11:30 today, March Madness here at Spark. If you want to come join us for lunch and watch the games on the big screens, we'd love to have you. It's just $15, and we're going to have just a great time this afternoon watching some basketball.
Ole Miss, Wisconsin on the big screen.
They'll be on the big screen.
Okay, well, there's a certain player for Ole Miss that you'll want to kind of ignore. But he's a great basketball
He's a
player.
great basketball player. He's just got some other stuff too.
But again, that's at 11:30 today. And you have another event coming up too.
Got another event coming up too, April 23rd. Starts our whole series in terms of thinking about collaboration, and we're going to start it off with Dr. Lowry, the president of Lipscomb, who is going to be in conversation with Brad Dunn to learn the collaborative lessons from the formation of the new Williamson County Chamber of Commerce.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll take you to Studio A on Mallory Station Road. And Hudson Alexander will talk about this week's sports developments with Terry Merrill. You're listening to WBKM Franklin, Tennessee, streaming live on WBKMWorldwide.com.